Hello and welcome to another episode of the Manufacturing Leaders Podcast with me, Mark Bracknell, Managing Director of Theo James Recruitment. Today we welcomed on Bradley Gaunt, the Managing Director of Made for Trade based in Billingham in the northeast of England. This was a real fascinating episode. Made for Trade will be a 40-year-old business very soon, which I think in itself is an unbelievable accomplishment. It was a story of a business which was initially founded in the late 70s by Bradley's dad. He then took it on at the age of 23, which at the time was a business which was pretty much on its knees. Bradley, over time, took that to what is now a very highly successful business, working with his brother, who is a technical director itself, and we'll talk in detail about how that works. It was a fascinating story, and I think the overriding message for me was the importance of being agile, the importance of being able to pivot at times of need and always looking for opportunities. What I love about manufacturing, what I love about engineering, is that at the core of it is inventors, innovators, people with brilliant ideas. And I love this episode because exactly that. Bradley's someone who is clearly an engineer who sees opportunities on the horizon and then tries to think how can we build this, how can we create it. And that was the overriding message in the story. And perhaps, unfortunately, that is why some big businesses around there haven't been able to adapt to the changing marketplace we've seen over the last few years, and we have unfortunately seen many big businesses shut down. So it was again a message to be lean, be mean, be capable of making those decisions when you need to make those decisions as a business, and always look for opportunities, which, as I say, was the overriding message of this episode. So I hope you enjoy. Sit back, have a coffee, watch, listen. As I always say, please do me a favour. If you watch on YouTube, please subscribe to the channel. We are pushing more and more videos on there. If you listen on Spotify or Apple, please rate the show, subscribe it. It means the absolute world to me, and it sets me off on a tangent, try and get more good people like Bradley as well. So thank you very much. Hope you enjoy the episode. Excellent. So warm welcome to Bradley Gaunt. Bradley, welcome on the show. Looking forward to chatting to you.
Hey Mark, nice to be here.
Good man, excellent. So first question, same question I ask every person that comes on the show. What does it mean to you to be a leader?
To be a leader? To be a leader, I think you've got to have a vision. I think that's pretty obvious. I think you've got to be passionate about the vision, but also inspiring others to be passionate with you. When you've got people working for you, you've got to look at their strengths, you've got to look at the weaknesses, you've got to make sure that you're getting the best out of them. So exposing them to the strengths, but understanding where the weaknesses are. So you're not necessarily exposing them deliberately to their weaknesses. I guess inspiring people as well. As a leader, that you're somebody that people tend to look towards, obviously, for that leadership. So inspiring them to be on that journey, I think, quite important. Obviously, people working there, you've got to encourage them to be the best they can be. Giving them the correct tools to do that, I think, is really important. So again, encouraging people and supporting them to get there. Knowing how to motivate people, I suppose, is important. Not everyone has the same motivation. The criteria. It's not always. Usually is financial, underlying, but it's not always. So understanding, what makes people tick, I think, is important. Yeah. I guess ultimately, being someone that people can follow and work with to achieve, obviously, the vision that is set out, and that includes, there's times where you've got, you're not always faced with all the information, all the facts. I'm very data driven, so I like to understand what all the lay of the land as best I can before making decisions. But ultimately, sometimes there isn't all that information there, and someone's got to make that decision. They've got to carry the can. They've got to go with it. And I guess as a leader, that's that job. Sometimes you've got to make a decision. You've got to run with it, but I guess on that flip side as well, you've got to be strong enough to understand that getting down that path, you might find that because you might not have had all the information at the beginning, you might find halfway along that that isn't the right decision. And you've got to be strong enough, and you've got to not have the ego, I guess, to not turn back and then go down a different path. And that's sometimes a costly, time-consuming experience. We've been there ourselves, but sometimes that's the right thing to do.
Yeah.
I guess probably the only other thing is that you've got to listen to what others have to say. It's very easy at the top of the tree to just direct and tell people what to do, but listening to their views and not having such an ego that you think, well, my way is the only way. There are other ways to do things, and sometimes a lot of times people come up with a better solution, or it's maybe a combination of ideas, and it's not just a case of my way is my way or the highway. So again, listening to what people have to say, making them feel part of a team to get to where we want to be.
Love that. And so much in that, and such a detailed answer, and so much to unpack. I'd be keen to chat to you about, you mentioned about vision. And look, we'll probably go up, down, everywhere, how the business started, sort of as we go on. But I resonate with pretty much all that. And when I heard the word vision, I thought about where we are now as a business in terms of, I think we have got a vision, but I don't think we had a vision for the first few years, because most people don't really start a business with this perfect plan. It all goes to plan. You almost find your way. Was that, we'll go back in a bit to how you started the business, but when did you think you had a good enough vision that other people could follow that vision and buy into it, would you say?
It is a chicken and egg situation. You said, we talk about this, where I've come from with the business, and it is relevant. I started the business when I was 23. Well, I didn't start the business, I took over. So it was a family business. And, I'm coming in, I'm fresh out of university, and I'm coming into to a team of people that they're looking at this kid, essentially. And, you're trying to understand and learn your way through. And at that stage, the vision of where's the business going, it's not even on the horizon. It's just a case of, we need to just try and settle this ship and move it into a more positive direction, which we can talk about in a bit. But at that stage, the vision wasn't even on the horizon. It was just about getting to the next day, the next week. I guess the true vision came when we myself, my brother at the time, who now works for us as technical director, we had this idea about coming up with a product, the Cornish roof lantern, which is I'd like to think market leading product now, but at the time we were sort of searching for something that could complement what we already did as a business with the manufacturing side, and we had fitting teams for conservatories, so it did fit. And it was at that point when we developed that, and we thought, yeah, hang on, we've got something here. We're treading new ground, and there was belief that we can maybe do things that not everyone else can in terms of product development, because of both of our backgrounds. So I guess to answer your question in a long rounded way, probably around 2015 was when the vision really came to light, and we were able to go from there.
Yeah, love that. And so I like to ask you about that in terms of the business side, because like you say, it was your father's business, wasn't it?
It was.
Yeah, and he started it, was it in the 80s, really? When did the business first start?
So he created the company back in 1979, but we didn't register as Anchor UK, which is the limited company, by the way, until 1983. Okay. So actually our 40th year this year, which is cool. But yeah, so it was a family business from back in the late 70s, early 80s.
Yeah, and amazing. Like I say, a 40-year-old business. How many of those nowadays? Not many. So that's brilliant. Was it always the plan for you to go into the business, or how did that come about?
No, not at all. No, it was never the plan. So it was always a case. My dad wanted, his idea was that I needed to find my own way, and it was he wanted, well, my mum as well. They wanted to give us, myself and my brother and my sister. They wanted to give us the tools to uh, to do what we needed to, or what we would like to have done in life. And I followed a path into engineering. So I did a degree engineering. My brother did a degree in engineering as well, and I worked as an engineer for a couple of years. I went to university. After that. I went traveling for a bit. Then, as you do, and then came back a couple of years trying to settle down as an engineer. And then it was a situation where there was my dad had sort of semi-retired back in the early 2000s, early retirement, and he came to me, and still I was still very young at the time, and I wanted to I wanted to travel again, and the job I was in, it wasn't really where I wanted ultimately to be, and I'd booked to go traveling, and that fell through. I'd taken a bit of time out from that job, and my dad said, "Look, sorry," and then the traveling sort of fell through. So it was, my dad came to me and he's like, "Look, the business isn't doing so well. I'm not really interested in taking it forward. I've done my stint. So ultimately, you can have a go and see how far we get. And there's nothing lost if it doesn't work out, or you can continue along your own path." And I thought, right, well, let's give it up, see what happens. And yeah, and then here we are.
Crazy, isn't it? Did you feel? I mean, obviously, it sounds like he didn't intentionally didn't put any pressure on you, but I imagine there was inside him, he was still really, really, really want to do well, because obviously he built that. Did you feel the pressure, or not all?
No, I mean, it was quite literally, the business really was in a bad place back then. We were hemorrhaging a lot of money, and I think my dad had guarantees in place with the bank, and it was with the family home. And it was a case where he was like, "Look, I'm going to take these guarantees away because I don't want this hanging over me. I'm not involved in the business day to day.
Yeah.
And if I take them away, the business will go to the wall. Yeah. But if you want, we'll and with his support as well, we will leave them in place, and we'll give it a bit of time and see how we get on." And so there was no pressure, and it was quite it was, I wouldn't say it was an easy decision, but I guess at the time, 23 years old, I'd had this idea of going traveling again. That had fallen through. So I was like, well, what do I do now? Didn't have a lot of options. So I was like, well, this sounds like it could be something to pay the bills for a bit of time, and we'll see how far it goes. And that's essentially how it started. But yeah, there was no pressure. There was no pressure.
So, obvious question, and this wouldn't be an overnight thing, but how does a relatively inexperienced 23-year-old turn a business around to, over time, now be where you are today? I know that was must have been a long game, but what was the first things you put in place to start getting on the right trajectory, would you say?
So it was really quite difficult. I press on with this youth, and it is important because there's people that had been in the business at that time, for 20 years, and they'd done the same job day in, day out, and then this young kid's coming along who is essentially put in charge. I mean, I've got to be clear. Like, when I did join the business, I didn't just jump in with both feet and start telling people what to do, because the way I understood it, the way I believed, was like, how can I tell people what to do if I can't do their job?
Yeah.
So there was a process of me learning, and shadowing, and just running with it, how the business was running at that time. So yeah, It was a slow approach. But ultimately, I came into the business, and um, it was quite inefficient. We had a factory manufacturing PVC windows and doors, conservatories, and there was a lot of machinery, for example, that needed replacing. And we had all these fixed costs and these machines that were needing a lot of maintenance, probably replacing. So what we decided to do, which was quite radical, was to stop manufacturing all of the PVC side and the glass as well, and buy in those products, which gave us the ability. I mean, that wasn't an easy journey, by the way. That was quite hard. And then you've got redundancies and all the rest of it, which is never nice. But it was the decision that we believed was the right one, because otherwise the business wasn't sustainable in any shape or form. We were hemorrhaging a lot of money. Like I say, you've got these fixed costs going through quieter times of the year, which you had to find the money for machinery that was going to need replacing. It wasn't reliable. So this was the decision we chose, and we bought in the products, like I said, and it was essentially the same products that we were manufacturing ourselves, which is good from a remedial point of view. So like we'd fitted a lot of the products into the area, and if there was any issues, we could get hold of the same product again to fix it. Just to give you a bit of clarity, back then we just manufactured and installed PVC products into a 30-mile radius of where we are in Teesside. So we weren't really set up for trade, even though the name now suggests made for trade, that we are. But that's where Made for Trade was founded. So we realized by buying these products in, it gave us an uncapped capacity to push a trade counter. Mm-hmm. Up until that point, it was a case of if we had a bumper week of domestic sales, they would soak up all the capacity in the factory. So whatever was left was like, we've got a little bit for trade. So we would, we'd sell what we could in a small way. But by having the capacity now, we were able to really concentrate, and we created a trade side, and we wanted to differentiate it from the company that we were, the domestic company, which is Anco. So we founded a company, we created a trading name, Made for Trade. We set up a trade counter, and we pushed on with that side. And with the fabrication space that we now had, because we weren't doing windows and doors anymore and glass, we pushed on with a conservatory roof business. So we were doing a couple of domestic conservatories for ourselves. And we were thinking, well, if we can get another two, that's good money at that level. So we pushed on with that. We pushed on with the selling PVC windows and glass. And that worked. That started to work pretty well. We certainly weren't out of the woods at that point. We were still losing money. Around 2010, 2011. So that was back in 2005. So by 2011, 2010, we looked at what else we could add, and we decided that an aluminium bifold was something that would fit with what we did. It seemed to be up and coming at the time, and we had some space to be able to put machines in for it. So we invested in a CNC, and we double used the saw from the conservatory fabrication side, and we had this little shed, and it was literally big enough for the CNC and not much else. And we started fabricating aluminium bifolds, which we were completely new into the aluminium market. We hadn't been into it before, so it was a steep learning curve. And what we soon found is that most of the business was in the south. So logistically, it became quite a challenge, because we had a van which we'd strap a door to on the side. And you can't efficiently go down south with a door strapped on the side and make any money unless you're charging 600 quid for delivery. So we had to it was a case of, we just got to go for this. We'll set it up. We're going to take a hit earlier on, but we'll create these routes into the south of England and get more business by going out with a price that is as keen as we could. And that happened. So we started to sell more. We started to put more doors on the van. Then we needed 2 vans, and then we needed a wagon. And alongside this, we had to move factories a couple of times to expand the fabrication side, because we were just outstripping it each year. And then, like I alluded to before, 2015, we there's an interesting story about how we got to a lantern, actually. But we if you want, we can talk about that. But ultimately, we started developing this lantern, and it was my brother, who's working in Italy at the time as a chassis designer. So he worked with like the Fiat Group, so Ferrari and all that sort of concept stuff for those guys. And it was me and him that we had no one else in the business. It was just Ash and I developing this lantern between us. And we got that done, I think, 18 months from concept to launch, which was, looking back, not sure I could have done that now. And then it went from there. So like since then we've added our own bifold door, which is doing really well for us. And we've got other products on the horizon as well. New flat glass product that we're launching, imminently. So we've shown that a few shows, and yeah, that's where we are. So that's the journey, man.
It sounds like you mentioned 2015, the lantern, and obviously the vision. Was the lantern the tipping point? Would you say was that the time where you thought, this is it, we can be a business here?
Yeah, because up until that point, we're fabricating third-party products.
Yeah,
and this the time between when I said we started that trade account about 2010, 2011, and 2015. The bifold growth gave us the funds to be able to develop the lantern.
Okay.
Now, up until that point, we didn't have it's one of those, we didn't have the funds or the resources to do anything apart from just trying to keep the business afloat. So it was that journey that took us into the lantern.
Which I think is a fascinating story anyway, because if you think about what we've just been through, companies have had to completely pivot over COVID, where some people literally had to completely change their product just to stay alive. It was a little bit different for you. You're more of a creative mind, but it proves, doesn't it, that you should never just accept the product you have. You've always got to be looking for other avenues and other opportunities. Was it planned for a long time that this is an opportunity, or did you just see a niche and thought, right, we can create something here then?
I'll tell you the story.
Yeah.
I mean, it's maybe a little political, actually, but I'll try to sort of leave names out. But we were, like I said to you, we were fabricating conservatory roofs for ourselves, and what happened was the supplier of the third-party company that supplied the conservatory roofs was acquired by one of the other the manufacturers of conservatory roofs in the market at that time, and it meant that during that transition phase we couldn't get supply of material, and it was just a nightmare. There was a number of weeks where we just couldn't get products. So that led us to talking to one of the more trade orientated systems houses. So the product that we were fabricating was probably a bit too aluminium heavy, which was great in terms of, from a selling point of view, and Mr. and Mrs. Jones wanting sort of the perceived best thing on the market. But from a cost point, it was high. So we couldn't compete on that trade level. So we started talking to this trade company, and they set us up, and that went really well for a number of years. That company, around 2007, I reckon, 2008, when we sort of started hitting bad times, that company started to struggle. And there was another company which did a competitor roof in the market that wanted, I guess, to push this company that we were dealing with a little bit harder and push them out of business, essentially. So they came into us and they gave us this deal that we believed was, well, it was a good deal. And we went with that, thinking that the writing was on the wall with the current supplier. And our business sort of mentality has always been supply the best product, the best service at the best price. So we like we did with the bifolds, we were going out at prices that people couldn't ignore. Always been a market disruptor, and we grew a good business generated with conservatory roofs. And then the sales director of this company, who won't mention his name, but he thought it was a good idea to try and recoup some of the business that they'd given away in the initial by trying to slap an 18% price increase in. Now, that is a difficult pill to swallow at the best of times when everyone else is taking it, but when you're the only one taking it, it really leaves a sour taste in your mouth. So we really were over a barrel with this, and we had to take this price increase. So it was after that I felt, as you probably would imagine, a little aggrieved about the situation. So I said to Ash, Ash, we could do a conservatory roof. I'm sure we could do it. We've got the skills. Why don't we look at it? And we took the roof that we were fabricating as a baseline, and we did some structural analysis for the rafters, for example. We did some finite element analysis on it to establish the strength of this profile, this bar. And we did another design where we took the rafter and we were able to, and I think the numbers escape me now, but I think it was something like 30% lighter, but 25% stiffer. So it meant you could get away with obviously a lot less, as the cost of this product could then be reduced even further than 30% because it's 25% stiffer. And we also came up with another couple of little features, like fixing these rafters in from the outside of the roof, which no one else was doing. It was all fixed for the inside. So we're trying to think at this time around the fitting and making it easy for the fitter, but also from a cost point of view. So we went to see a company that we'd been dealing with for a lot of years about it was an annual business meeting, I guess. And it was at that meeting I spoke to the CEO of this company, and me and Ash presented what we'd done. And we showed him this example of the rafter and the fixing mechanism. And we said, look, this is the sort of thing that we're coming up with. And this guy, I don't know whether he'd be kicking himself now, but he said, oh, that's very nice, but come back when you've got something more tangible, when you've got a full design. So we're like, all right, okay. Because we needed investment, because we didn't have the cash funds to do this ourselves. So he sent us on our way. And it was that I said to Ash, I said, right, okay, why don't we just do a lantern? Because it's really much more simple than a conservatory. We'll do that in 6 months, and then we'll get back on with the conservatory. Yeah. Because it's very similar. Well, it's not very similar. It is different, but there is a lot of synergy between the two products. It's rafters and hips and ridges. So it was at that point we started on the lantern, and we developed that, and then we forgot all about conservatories after
that. Amazing, isn't it? It's because not luck, is it? Obviously, it's fortune. It's doing the right things and then seizing an opportunity that some people would have just given up, wouldn't they? At that.
Yeah, I guess so. But we are that way inclined in terms of engineering, the product development. That's what we love, and there's always different ways to skin a cat, and in terms of design, there's different ways to get to the end goal. Some are better than others, and so it was always going to be a case of using those skills, I guess, ultimately.
Apologies for interrupting this podcast for a very quick 30-second pitch of my business. Theo James are a specialist manufacturing and engineering recruitment search firm based in Seaham in the North East. If you're looking for any staff or a new opportunity yourself, from a semi-skilled level right the way up to C-suite executive, then please get in touch. We have a specialist consultant in each discipline ready to help. I'm extremely proud of what we've built over the years, and I'd love to extend that service out to you. Thank you. Enjoy the podcast. I had someone on podcast yesterday. I was talking about this, and he was saying exactly that. Well, he was basically saying that the problems now in manufacturing, there are so many problems in manufacturing, and just trying to build in businesses afloat is hard enough, and it's stopping people like yourself who are natural innovators, inventors. All these people. We're known in the UK for producing and manufacturing and inventing so many amazing things, but because there's so many challenges right now, it's stifling people's creativity because you at that time might not have had all those pressures, but you created something which is brilliant. And I don't think we're seeing that quite as much now because people have got their head in stuff which they've got to just try and deal with to keep the business afloat. It's a big challenge, isn't it?
It is. It is a very big challenge, but there's a lot of companies out there, not just in the fenestration industry, but as a industry as a whole. And the people who generally run the businesses aren't, they're very good at what they do, obviously, but they're not necessarily technical. And I do think that we are slightly unique in that regard. That we have, I guess, engineering running through the blood at the top level, which helps drive that side of things. Because, like you say, it would be easy just to sit back and fabricate third-party systems, or even, come to engineer another product and just take a Me Too product and change it slightly and push that out. But ultimately, it's the same thing. Yeah. So, I think there is that's certainly what I find exciting about solving these problems differently to what has gone before.
What's it like working with your brother, family and business?
I'm not sure I'm allowed to say on here.
It's a management podcast. It's different, isn't it? Yeah,
it is. I mean, no, we get on. We work really well together. We hang out outside of work as well. But obviously, he's the older brother, so 4 years difference. Yeah. The hierarchy when you're growing up. That the banter that you have as you're growing up, and then. So I was given the opportunity to take over the business. Ash wasn't involved in the business at that time. He was doing his own thing. And it was only later that he came in. Sometimes, we have, like every business, every family, have difficult conversations, but it's not personal. We don't scream and shout at each other, but, well, not often anyway. Try not to in front of the staff. But, yeah, we don't generally scream and shout at each other, but there is that more of a sibling sort of relationship there. Whereas if it's not your relative, your brother, your sister, it's probably easier to manage. Yeah. But yeah, we get there and we understand the boundaries, but it's not always plain sailing, Mark, I tell you.
Yeah, but the pros and cons, like you say, and I imagine because you've got that relationship as well, you'll challenge each other, and perhaps where in situations where someone wouldn't challenge someone, but you might get the best out of each other because of that. I think there's definitely pros and cons, but look, it's definitely worked because look where you are. What's interesting?
I was just going to add. So it is interesting thinking about it because, like Ash and I, when we're developing stuff, we're very in tune with each other. Okay. Almost finishing each other's sentences, that sort of thing. Yeah. Because we've grown up with each other. And it's funny because other people, my ops director is also an engineer and he's a friend of mine from when I was younger. But he's like, when you two get on it, you're just you're rabbiting on and you'll say a few words and the other Ash will understand exactly what you're talking about and vice versa. And then you come up to a solution quite quickly because we understand exactly where each other's coming from. But from an outside point of view, from what I'm led to believe, it's unclear, a bit chaotic. But I guess it's just that dynamic of growing up with somebody, isn't it? And being in tune.
Of course it is. And look, you two are obviously very creative people. Is that something you've tried to harness in the business as well? So people come up and having some input into what happens and some change and bringing ideas to the table.
In terms of what future, like developing future product, or
absolutely, yeah, because you get some businesses where, like, the message comes from the top. You get some businesses that want other people to have ideas and bring new ideas and bring change to the business. What's your mindset about that, would you say?
Definitely encourage. I'd like, ideas brought to forward. It doesn't have to be in engineering. It can be across the business as a whole. There's some good people. There's a lot of good people in the business now. A lot of capable people who can run with it, take a task, get on, run with it, get it done. And I'm quite happy for that to occur. In the early days, that wasn't possible. I had to be involved in every area, but now, I can concentrate more on the things that I'm passionate about. So the design side of things and the engineering department, and I guess a bit of sales and a bit of marketing. But certainly, if I'm honest, it is quite difficult sometimes, because I guess I've got the added experience of being at the company from such an early stage, where we had fitting teams, so we understood what the customers wanted at that point. We had, and also what the fitters, so what the customers wanted, what the fitters appreciated in terms of ease and speed for their installation, and manufacturing as well. So my background is manufacturing engineering, so that as well. So when I'm looking at a product, when we're looking as a team at what products to develop next, or if we've chosen one and we're trying to decide on what the specification is and what the USPs are, you do have self-belief. I have self-belief in the direction that I want that to go. But it's important, and I guess I'm sometimes guilty of this, but I do try to not just like push on with one idea. It's trying to have your eyes open to what others can put on into the table, into the mix, and then it's about discussing those things. And like I said earlier, coming up with a solution that essentially the team's generated. But it is quite difficult being creative at the top, as a leader, in that respect, because you do have self-belief, and you do think, well, this is how I see it, and this is how I think, therefore it should be done. But like I say, you've got to be mindful. You've got to accept that there are other people who have good ideas, and give that the time of day, but ultimately come up with a better product and a better solution because of it.
Yeah, love that. You mentioned 2015. By the time there's some change, you had a vision. I had Mike Matthews on my podcast a few weeks ago, who's the ex-MD of NIFCO, and he challenged me a lot on having a plan. I thought I had a plan until I interviewed him, and I didn't have a clear enough plan, which I think linked with the vision. Is that something you've always felt important for the business, in terms of knowing what your plan is to reach X, whatever your goal is in the next sons of years, or is it a different ideology for you?
In the last few years, we've definitely got a plan, or at least more of a plan. Like I said to you, in the early days, it was just a case of getting to the end of the week, or trying to get to the end of the year, and still be in business. When we launched the lantern, it was all new territory. We didn't know where it was going, and it was a case of, we now need to sort of try and grow the business in a controlled manner, not become too top heavy, and be efficient and lean, but have the right people in the right positions. But now we've got broadly that model. We have been able to look forward, and our business is about product, and having what we believe is the best product in the market, and that's the vision, is to continue along that path, and to keep expand the product portfolio, but doing the right things at the right time. So yeah, we in past times we haven't had the vision, and we haven't had possibly the vision that we should have had, but we're definitely getting there now. It's not entirely clear, I'm sure nobody's is, but we've got a good idea of where we're sort of wanting to head.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Manufacturing obviously has had its challenges. It's still got a lot of challenges right now. You'll have seen a hell of a lot of change in the time you've obviously been running that business. Where do you see manufacturing now in terms of where it's going, and perhaps challenges that you're facing as business, or you see coming up, would you say? Because it feels like it's a bit of a pivotal moment, I would say, in the industry at the moment.
I think it's got to come down to, like I said, product is important. If you're manufacturing a product that nobody wants and you're doing it the best way in the world, it's still not going to make you a good business. It's still, you're not going to sell many of those products. Yeah. So having the right product is really important. And I think, we've just seen, Safe Style go pop not so long ago, national name. Duraflex and a few companies within that group, they went a month or so ago as well. These are big companies that have been around a lot of years. And I wonder whether they just haven't been agile enough to change with the market. Yeah. So I think it's important for companies to be close to data driven. I keep saying that to our staff. You've got to look at the data. What's it saying? You've got to conform to fit in terms of the market. So if the market's on a decline, recognize that, try to understand why. Is there something that you can do to make to improve the position of the business? Do you have to downscale? Do you have to diversify? Cut costs, whatever that may be more efficient. These are all things that we're going to have to, I think it's not just the industry I'm in, we're in, it's everywhere. You've got to be more efficient, more lean, but doing the products that you do, making sure that you've got good service with it. These are all important factors that I think some companies miss, and it's whether they, and sometimes it's just a case that they're too big to react that quickly. Yeah. So yeah, I do think there's challenges that we are facing. There's more challenges certainly that we're going to face. The world is upside down a bit at the moment. People are maybe holding on to their money where they were maybe a year ago, 18 months after COVID. There was a big boom in sales. Now they're holding on, and you've got to try and do the best you can with the tools you have. And I just think that the way we're going, I say efficiency, being lean, having the right products, and service. So those are probably the take homes, I guess.
Excellent stuff. Got some quick fire questions, but that's okay, buddy. Who was the best manager? Now you might have to think back here, because obviously you were starting when you were 23. But who was the best manager or influence, if you like, on your career that you've ever had? I'll let you have influence because you're not many managers.
I mean, it's got to be my dad. He founded the company, and he brought me in, like we talked about earlier, and he mentored me through. And he's still there in the background. He's retired now, but he's still interested in how the business is doing. He's handed the reins over many years ago, but he's still there if you need any advice. And he still comes onto the trade shows with us. We go to the consumer show, home building renovation, and he's there on the stand all day. 77-year-old, he just loves it. And I think it's just good crack at getting away with the boys. But he's definitely been the biggest influence in my career. Substantially compared to. We've had some good people, but I think that one, my dad is the one.
He must be unbelievably proud as well to say, you know what I mean? Like for him to had a business that he was perhaps ready to give up to its 40th year coming up, with both his sons working in, unbelievable, really.
I think he is. I mean, he says he is. So, I mean, we like it wouldn't be possible. It wouldn't have been possible without him. And I think he's given us the tools in our early years to be able to get where we are today. He's allowed us to make decisions where decisions needed to be made, and supported us, both of us really. But yeah, I would like. I think he is. I think he is proud. But we've still got a long way to go. So hopefully, you'll see those changes over the next decade as well.
Do you ever give yourself time to? I mean, I think podcasts are interesting to do that, but do you ever give yourself time to reflect on? It's because obviously, when you're in the business, you're just in the business, aren't you? And it's very hard to put your head above and see how the last few years have gone. Do you give yourself time to sort of go, right, okay, I need to analyze and think about things, or is it just all systems go?
A year or so ago, it was a point I got to, and I was looking at the business, and I'm thinking, Christ, it's like this is a big thing now. Where we started from. It's a big thing now, and you start to question, well, is it me? But how have I managed to do this? I think it's imposter syndrome is the term.
Yeah.
And I did sort of feel that it was a case of, well, how did little old me get this sort of business that I'm looking at here, and the people that are doing it, and what the sort of things that we're developing. And there's people in the business who are more intelligent than I am. I mean, there is. I'm not going to sit here and say that I'm the Stephen Hawking of the business. There's some very capable, very clever people, and it is difficult sometimes for me at least, to sit back and sort of take all the credit, because there's a lot of people in that journey along the way. So it's an interesting point to make. Like, have I sat back and looked at where we've come from, where we are now? And I certainly have. And sometimes it's quite surreal. And like I say, it sort of made me a year or so ago question, well, how has this even happened? But I guess I have been there and I've been influential in it, but it's not just been myself. There's been a lot of other people on the journey getting us here.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's clear even for me to listen to know that you've facilitated that journey. You've brought the right people in, you facilitated the right decisions. You've I imagine had to make some very tough, quick decisions at times to keep the business afloat and to keep the business agile. And obviously, the end result is a very successful business, which is great to see. I say, to celebrate 40 years, I think it's phenomenal. And I'm 8 years in, I'll take 40, I think. Biggest influence from the business, entertainment, or sporting world, would you say?
And what was that? Sorry, what were?
And biggest influence for you from the business or entertainment or sporting world? Anyone that sort of ever inspired you, or you like listen to or watch?
I mean, from the sporting world, I'm a rugby man. So Johnny Wilkinson is probably one of my. He's only a couple of years older than me, actually, but he was definitely someone that I looked up to when I was younger. He's brilliant, obviously, at what he did. In terms of business, I mean, there's entrepreneurs out there that you look up to. I'm trying to think of who's really inspired me over the years. I guess a lot of it is sport, because I'm quite passionate about that, racing, motorsport, and rugby, like I say, cycling. There's some big names in there, I guess, that have inspired me over the years. There's people just pushing their boundaries and going beyond what you would expect is humanly possible. It's quite awe-inspiring, really.
I was expecting Schumacher to be your sporting.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, I know you're.
Yeah.
Massive into your racing. What are three things or three words that make up a good leader? What do you say? First things that come to mind.
Vision, motivational, and what would be the third one? Supportive.
Yeah,
I guess.
Yeah, great. Best book or audio book, podcast, anything you've ever read, watched, listened to, you recommend?
This is really sad. Well, maybe really sad, but I really love the Stephen Fry on it with the Harry Potter.
Yeah.
So my kids absolutely love it, and they put it on every night. It's like their comfort thing, and it's on in the car all the time. But it's really that is by far and away the best audiobook for me, because he does all the voices brilliantly, and it's such well written. But like I say, it's not. It's maybe more for the kids, but yeah.
Probably because it takes you away, though, isn't it? Probably because it's escapism still for you. It takes you away from.
You're right. I think absolutely right. I think it is. You can escape into that world, can't you, for a fleeting moment? So yeah, you're probably right there, Mark. Never thought of that.
Like it. And just finally, obviously, like we've talked a lot in detail about Overtrades, brilliant business for you. What are the things you're excited about over the next sort of 12 to 18 months? Anything on the horizon?
Yeah, we've got the flat glass, which we sort of launched at Fit Show. That's going to be available imminently. Very excited about that. There's another product that is on the horizon, which can't really talk about just yet. It's a bit early, but that's on the horizon. And then we're in the throes of building a more robust engineering team.
Yes.
With multiple teams, so we can accelerate what we do in a more efficient way. So that's exciting. There's a number of things really, but it's always every day's a school day, I reckon. You're always learning something, aren't you? So
100%. And you know what? This has been an absolute pleasure, and I think for people listening, perhaps they run a business or they work for a business or whatever, or they've lost their way a little bit. I think the override message for me is that innovation piece. If you look back over your journey of the business, you've not just accepted what is, you've always looked for what could be and what could change. And even there, when you've mentioned there, you've got new things on the horizon, new plans, new products. And I think it's so important in manufacturing, in engineering, because it's ever changing, whether that's for challenges we have or opportunities we have or whatever it is. There's always something different companies can do. And I think you've obviously done that as a business, and you've reaped the reward. So really appreciate this. It's been great. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mark. It's been a pleasure. I've enjoyed being here.